Welcome to Nerds Amalgamated, a podcast that covers the latest events in science, pop culture, and gaming.
I'm the professor, aspiring game developer, sci-fi aficionado, and completely and undeniably a geek trying to take over the world. I'll be breaking down the news from tech to gaming.
I am the DJ, a humble nerd, a big weeb,
and a watcher from the halls of the multiverse.
Just kidding. Anyways, I'll be breaking down all things comics to movies to anime.
Join us and stay hydrated as we quench you with witty banter, unintentionally hilarious hot takes, and trivia more fun than a night at the pub, courtesy of Nerds Amalgamated.
And welcome to another episode Nerds Amalgamated. How's it going there, Professor?
Absolutely wonderfully. Until about 2 minutes ago when you logged on.
Are you just angry at the fact that it's a public holidays ending soon, as in a few hours from now?
Yes, and then we don't get any public holidays until August.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's like, have all the public holidays in the first half of the year, and then none for the second half.
Oh, we got a couple. Like, we got show day, we've got the king's birthday.
Yeah,
then...
that's like 2 of them up until Christmas.
Yeah, it's not evenly matched.
No, it's a bit silly.
Yeah, they really need to work on the whole holidays at this point. Anyway, so for this week, we're talking about subscription gaming and its failures, Ancient Fire, and streaming services can save Hollywood, according to Netflix, bizarrely. So, take it away.
Gee,
Professor.
I wonder why Netflix would be saying that.
They must have said that with dollar signs in their eyes. Kind of like games companies with the subscription gaming side of things.
And aren't you forgetting something there, DJ?
Oh, yeah. And I forgot to mention, this episode is sponsored by Rez. Rez.
Yes, we'll have a link in the show notes. We're sorting things out at the moment, so check the show notes for the updated links.
Will do. And on the advice of my doctor, I'm going to limit my use of Rez with crazy drinks, as it's as I couldn't sleep last night after trying another bit of Rez.
Well, that makes sense. It contains caffeine. It's the same amount of caffeine that's in a cup of coffee. Of course, it kept you up all night.
Yep. Hey, it was good. I used it for a good game of Marvel Rivals.
What did you mix it with?
Just water.
Okay. You're getting tame in your old age.
I know. That's such a bad thing at this point. Not as bad as subscription gaming and its failures. Yes, I know I've done the segue twice, but hey, shoot me.
Well, to be fair, the first time you forgot something, so...
Oh, yeah, fair.
That's understandable. Anyway, this week I've got an article about the future of subscription gaming. And it turns out that in the US, spending on video game subscriptions has remained flat since 2021, apart from a temporary boost from Call of Duty launching on Game Pass. And the analysts are saying that it's reached saturation point, so subscriptions aren't going to grow any further.
Wait, when you mean saturation point, what do you mean by that exactly?
They've picked up all of the customers they're going to get. They can't grow extremely fast anymore, which is what all businesses seem to try to do these days. So since there hasn't been much growth there since 2021, the analysts are saying that we're going to get to keep game sales, full game sales. We're not going to have to go to the own nothing approach. Now, there's arguments about whether you actually own your Steam library, but going to a subscription service is a further erosion of ownership.
It's kind of getting into the whole point of own a game for a week and then return it back to us. You know, like the good old video rentals model.
Yeah,
of the old.
It's the modern form of game rentals.
Oh shit! I could see Blockbuster coming out of its ashes right now.
No, Microsoft's got it pretty locked down.
Oh yeah. So is this for only Microsoft, or is it for other platforms like PlayStation and Nintendo and?
The analyst doesn't say whether it includes all of the data from the other platforms as well. But they do mention that Sony and Microsoft have stopped reporting subscription numbers.
Oh.
So they basically, when they're growing quickly, they report last quarter we gained 50 million subscribers or whatever. And the investors are like, that's great, let's buy the stock. When it slows down, they don't want to say we picked up 5 million subscribers, because the investors will see that and go, that's bad, let's sell the stock. Because stock market logic is a bit different from actual logic.
As in, like, stock market logic would be the price of a cow is $200, while real world logic would be the price of a cow is $1,000 kind of thing? Or...
No, my point was more that the stock market likes fast growth because people want to put their money in and make a big profit. So, but it is still, it's really just gambling with a different name, because you can't guarantee that the market will go up.
Yeah.
I mean, so you can, but you can't guarantee that if you invest in any one particular company, that it will go up more than the rest of the market, or that it won't go bankrupt and you lose everything.
I mean, but that depends on that takes a lot of variables. That depends on if your next product is a banger, or if your company doesn't get embroiled in any shitty behavior, like every company we know, games company we know of, and if, let's say, if the staff are consistently working on other projects, like I said, if the games are absolute, next few games are bangers, and you get like a high turnaround rate,
then the share price will still go up.
Yeah.
It's when the share price doesn't go up as fast that investors start to jump ship. And not reporting the subscription numbers is probably to disguise that they've stopped growing and try to prevent a drop. But the analyst I've interviewed for this, or they've sourced, is Matt Piscatella from the company Circana. And his point is that subscriptions are not the future of gaming, but they can be a part of it. At least in the US. Maybe the rest of the world will be different. But Nintendo is likely to have some growth in the future because they have they've integrated Switch Online more tightly with the Switch 2.
Okay.
But I'm for one, I'm glad that this is not taking off, because really the ownership rights we have as consumers of games then are really weak to begin with. Subscriptions are just a way to get us to the point where we don't consider ourselves to own the games. You might remember a Ubisoft thing talking about subscriptions, that gamers need to learn to not own their games.
Yeah, I think I remember something about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Someone said they have to be comfortable with not owning the games. Yeah, it was from a recent interview from Ubisoft's director of subscriptions, Philippe Tremblay, which he laid out the present and future of streaming services, covering the recent changes Ubisoft Plus service, which has undergone a slight rebrand. And
that's the other problem. Everyone has their own game streaming these days, or game subscription.
Yeah.
It's like the TV streaming, like Netflix and Disney and all that as well. It's so fractured that you need to access everything, you need to have so many different subscriptions. So they're constantly fighting to get people off the other subscriptions and onto their platform.
Do you think this is a victim of not victim of the bad term. This is a symptom of the of when you're using the live service model?
Say that again, but in English.
Do you reckon this is a symptom of when you're using the live service model of gaming, how when a game is on a live service timeline, and then all of a sudden, it's gone. The subscription is done. It's out of the game.
I think I get what you're getting at now. That subscription gaming is a key part of the live service gaming market.
Yeah.
To an extent, yes. The live service gaming does rely on subscriptions as well as microtransactions. I mean, how many people have Blizzard convinced to pay $20 a month or whatever for World of Warcraft?
Oh shit.
But these newer game subscriptions are more like streaming services. Rather than subscribing to one single game, you subscribe to a library of games and then get to play whatever games are available on the day. But they can add and remove games at will.
Yeah, and you also
And to finish my point, that it's like TV streaming. It's so fractured. Everyone wants their own slice of the pie. I don't think it can really take off unless each service has access to effectively the entire catalog. Because if you look at music streaming, things like Spotify, YouTube Music, and Apple Music are functionally almost indistinguishable.
Yeah.
You can listen to almost any band you want on any of those services, with a few exceptions. And it's not great for the band because they don't make a whole lot of money. But yeah, I don't think there's going to be game subscriptions are going to take off unless you can get every game in one place.
I mean, I'm looking at the current services right now for streaming. My God, there is a lot of services.
There is.
Yeah, and for those we'll put the link on the show notes, but there is a lot of benefits, and each service has different benefits. Like Amazon Music has partial free access available, and there's all the selected streaming loose list available, high res, track downloads, official music credits, lyrics, and podcasts. Compared to, let's say, Napster. Yes, not the Napster that you remembered. They have no free access, but yes to selective streaming.
Yeah, so compare that to, what do they call it? Uplay? Ubisoft's game subscription service?
Yeah, it's
it only has Ubisoft games.
Yeah, it's now Ubisoft Connect, but it used to be Uplay. Yeah.
Yeah. So they have their own subscription service. EA has their own subscription service. Everyone has their own subscription service, and it's so fractured, and they expect us to pay as much as we're paying for a music streaming service. I have YouTube Premium because I watch so much YouTube, and I get a subscription with that. It comes with YouTube Music. I pay less than $20 a month for that, and I get access to all of the music ever made, basically. Now, there are times where I've gone looking for music and not been able to find certain artists, but if I compare that to, EA Play or Uplay or whatever, I'm paying the same amount, if not more, for a far smaller selection of games. Why would I do that?
It's a pointless exercise at that point.
Yeah, and then there's a disadvantage with a lot of these subscription services. You can't mod the game.
Oh yeah.
Which, to me, modding a game is a key part of owning it on a philosophical level, because not only can they can take it away from you if you buy a game through Steam. They mostly don't, but there is a way Steam can claw back a game that you've purchased. They will usually give you a refund unless you use a stolen credit card, and that's why they're doing it. But in all other cases, the game stays in your library. Then you get to mod it, and it's the same as owning a car. If you're not allowed to take your car apart and put it back together how you like, do you really own your car?
Yeah, but then there's always the whole case of warranty, though, isn't there? Well, with cars
warranties are kind of irrelevant, because in the US, where a lot of this law gets laid out and tested before it gets implemented in other countries, there's actually a law that says that, I think it's called the Magnuson-Moss Act. It's a law that says that if you take a thing apart and put it back together and it breaks for some other reason, not because you took it apart and put it back together, it's still covered by warranty. So basically those warranty void if broken stickers, shouldn't exist because they're just there to scare you out of your rights. And so places that have a similar law to the Magnuson-Moss Act, you can take your car apart and put it back together and not violate your warranty. So they have to prove that it broke because you modified it or whatever, not because of a defect from the factory.
But that depends on country by country. I mean, we don't. I mean, if I recall, Australia kind of has its own version of the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act, if I recall, like the consumer rights law or
Yeah.
something like.
My point is that for games don't come with a warranty really. Anyway, so modding a game wouldn't breach a warranty under the Magnuson-Moss Act unless the mod broke the game, which games don't actually come with a warranty. So I don't know why we're talking about warranties now that I think about it.
Because games do have their own versions of warranties, don't they?
Elaborate.
The game, I'm gonna type game warranties, and if there's any, like, because if I recall, some games would say like, oh, you're violating the
end user license agreement.
Yeah, those ones. Yeah.
That's a different thing, and it's also basically unenforceable because they specifically designed the end user license agreement to cover their ass, but they're basically unenforceable because they're so complicated that the average person can't understand what's going on. And there's also no I disagree option. So if any other kind of agreement or contract, if you disagree, you can just choose not to sign it. But when you buy a piece of software and you open it up and install it on your computer, and then it pops up the EULA will say, do you agree with the EULA or not? And if you say no, you can't then take it back to the store and return it. And EULAs are not like warranties, because EULAs are a set of terms about how you're allowed to use the product. A warranty is a guarantee that if there is a defect from the factory, the manufacturer has to replace or repair it.
Oh yeah. That's true. That because you were talking the example of the car, and I said because most cars would have warranties as well. So
yeah,
that was the reason why I brought up a warranty.
Well, games don't have warranties. So if I go out and buy a game and the game breaks my computer, there's no recourse really, because I would have to prove that it broke my computer and not something else. And the EULA probably, which is almost unenforceable, but probably has a clause about arbitrage or something that puts the ball back in their court and gives them the advantage. But if I was to buy a game and then the game was faulty, like No Man's Sky, the game was nothing like what they advertised. Yeah. I have no recourse to get a refund because it doesn't meet expectations without going through a class action lawsuit. So yeah, warranties are a whole different field that don't really apply to games.
With the with also the idea of subscription modeling being seeing no growth in it, do you reckon this is also a sign that the games industry is on the verge of collapse? I know we've been like doomsdaying this whole a sign of we're seeing the layoffs, we're seeing so many layoffs, we see the strikes, we're seeing the games companies shutting down. Do you reckon this is another milestone that we are going to see a crash, no matter how many stops we put it?
Well, the subscriptions are just another attempt to squeeze a bit more money out of the gamers, and I think that no, they're not really a sign of collapse. A sign of collapse would be if the games companies were becoming unprofitable, which you could argue they are, but without being an insider in the company looking at their financials, it's hard to say.
But you can see it from an observer point of view, though. Like, even without looking at from an insider lens, like from an observer's point of view, like you see company like Nintendo saying how the Switch 2, we're gonna jack up the price of that one, or how even recently we've been hearing news of GTA delaying their game and saying that, oh yes, our GTA game might come up to maybe $100 base price.
That has nothing to do with whether the company is profitable. That has to do with what the market will bear in terms of the price of games.
Sure, but
if the company can't find a way to be profitable with what the market will bear, then they either have to convince the market that their product is worth more, or they have to cut costs. And at the moment, we're seeing a lot of companies fire tons of people to cut costs, and they're not firing the people they need to be firing. They're firing all the low-level developers, and the CEO pay keeps going up. Who was it last week? It was Ubisoft again, wasn't it? Firing... No, it was Respawn.
Oh, yeah. And when they decided to cancel that Titanfall game.
Yeah, they cancelled a Titanfall game, which has got a lot of people very upset, and fired a couple of hundred people. Compare how much money the CEO made in the last year compared to previous years. It doesn't add up.
Yeah. What's interesting is they deemed the whole cancelling of Respawn as a shake-up at EA.
That's just what they call any major change.
I've typed I went to Reddit just then, and they put a thread on here about the topic what we're speaking about. Some of the comments I'm seeing are very interesting. Here's an interesting one. So the biggest issues subscription services industry are facing are 4 things. The free-to-play market, which is by default already cheaper than any subscription service and dominates every service as the most played games, in part large casual audience that only plays free-to-play games.
Wow, thanks, Sherlock.
Already existing libraries. Netflix effectively killed Blockbuster by putting a better alternative and coming in right where it should have been in transition from DVD to Blu-ray for people's collection. But Netflix ends up being the big disruptor and come up with a reason why Blu-rays didn't take off like DVDs did. The lack of any real exclusive subscription services, love or hate film subscription services and their impact on their industry. There's no denying that Netflix or Disney Plus originals or shows being a service helps those numbers and maintains and grows. Yet in the games industry, while I do think a good thing we have is a choice to buy everything on PS Plus and Game Pass, not making anything a real exclusive you can experience if you don't sub to a service does hurt long-term growth. And finally, as you put it, gaming is not like music or film. It requires a lot of reading a book. It's a lot like reading a book, where it requires your full attention experience. Whereas it is the case with your film, which ends in a lot of the shit on Spotify or Netflix being used as background noise. Something can't be done with gaming. So what do you think about that comment? This is by the way in r/games for those curious.
Well, yeah, it's obvious that free-to-play games have a bigger market because they have a lower barrier to entry. The other points, well, there are exclusives in games. Like, I can buy games on PS Plus, but if I want to play them, I still need to get a PlayStation.
Yeah.
Or wait 3 years for them to come out on PC, which is what I do instead.
Yeah, but then sometimes when you're changing ports from a PlayStation to PC, it's the quality is not the same. I remember Batman. Remember Batman Arkham? Was it Arkham Asylum?
Arkham Knight.
Yeah, that's the one.
Was the abysmal one.
Yeah.
But porting has gotten a lot easier in recent years because the latest generation of consoles are literally just PCs.
Yeah.
They run x86 processors, 64-bit x86 AMD processors with AMD GPUs. There's little difference between an Xbox hardware and my PC hardware. The big defining feature for the PlayStation is the DualShock 5, I think they're up to, which adds in a bunch of interesting things like haptic feedback and all of that. But yeah, porting is really easy these days. I don't think you're going to see another disaster like Arkham Knight, because if it's a disaster on one platform, that means it's a disaster on the other platforms.
There is one more thing I wanted to ask about when gaming. In regards to not being the future of gaming, do you think we're also entering into a bit of a time warp with how old school games are coming back in a sense? Like with the recent Oblivion game, for example.
Well, that is really a new release. It's an old game with a new graphics engine. So it did actually take a bunch of work to make. What doesn't take a bunch of work to make is re-releasing a game on PC because it will continue to play on PC into the foreseeable future. And if it doesn't, someone's already made an emulator for you, like DOSBox. So if people are willing to re-release games using DOSBox or some other emulator and not put effort into remastering, then that is actually going to dilute future sales of new games. Because PC gaming in particular, console gaming is different because then you're limited to games that they make backwards compatible. But PC gaming in particular, we have access to all, well, not all 50 years of gaming. Wait, what are we up to? More like 60 years now.
There's too many.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to when, like, Pong came out and arcade gaming took off. But anyway, my point is we have, say, 30 years of games that will run with very little effort on modern systems.
Yeah.
So I think that dilutes sales to an extent, because if you can play 30 years worth of games, you don't feel the need to buy the latest big thing because you've got enough of a backlog.
Okay, that's fair. Anyways, we should move on to our next topic. So
Come on, DJ, time management.
Ancient Fire. How did this story come out, Professor?
Well, there's a report from Universitat Wien, or Wien, I think is the correct way to pronounce it, showing 10,000-year-old fireplaces from the Ice Age.
For those curious, it's the University of Vienna.
So they've analysed 3 ancient fireplaces from a prehistoric site in Ukraine, and have discovered that ancient people used wood and possibly bones and fat to fuel their fire. So during a period known as the Upper Paleolithic, which is between 45,000 and 10,000 years ago, Homo sapiens developed fire culture. As far as we know, it could have been earlier than that, but, it's hard to find evidence from tens of thousands of years ago as it is. And Philip R. Nigst, one of the authors, says that fire was not just about keeping warm, it was also essential for cooking, making tools, and for social gatherings. And one of the other authors says that, William Murphy, says that fire was widespread before and after the Ice Age, which is 26,500 years, and between 26,500 years and 19,000 years ago, which seems sort of counterintuitive because you'd think during the Ice Age there'd be lots of fire.
I mean, isn't the Ice Age basically around that? That was after the famous meteor strike that killed the dinosaurs, wasn't it?
Oh my god.
You
are so far out. So far out.
Yes.
They're talking about tens of thousands of years ago compared to 65 million.
Yep. I shot myself in the foot right there.
Yeah, so the Ice Age we're talking about was definitely after the dinosaurs were wiped out. Homo sapiens did not show up until, 200,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So Homo sapiens as a species were after the KT extinction event. Come on, did you not watch the Magic School Bus or something? How do you get this so wrong?
Yeah, I think I missed the Magic School Bus that time. Damn. But jokes aside though, with the fire, around that time, the sources for fuel they would have been very, very different to what we get in terms of fuel sources, wouldn't they?
Yeah. So the analysis indicates that the fuel was mostly spruce wood.
Huh.
But that they might have used bones and fat as well, because they found animal bones that were burnt at a temperature of over 650 degrees Celsius, which is pretty hot. And the investigation is trying to work out if it's because they were used as fuel or were accidentally burned. And what's interesting is that the fireplaces indicate that people probably used different types of fires at different types of times of the year, which makes sense intuitively. But because this was before agriculture, everyone was nomadic. There were hunter-gatherers and nomadic hunter-gatherers who would migrate around and often have a loop. So the tribe would move in a loop. They'd move from one place that was good for food in spring to a place that was good for food in summer, and so on, and then come back to the place that was good for spring.
They've also this article also pointed out the fireplaces. They all had they were big and flat as well,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
Yeah, but the results of the study indicate that the hunter-gatherers came back to the same place multiple times throughout the year.
So could this mean that this was the first example of a commune?
No, I wouldn't say that. I'd say that hunter-gatherer tribes were probably much more communal than modern society, and that goes back way back beyond this.
Yeah.
Like, we can see societies of apes being communal. So we know it's not just humans who figured out how to be friends.
Did they say like how did the Ice Age humans control fire with such an extreme conditions though, or?
Yeah, they point out that it's odd that there aren't many known fire sites from the Ice Age, and are trying to figure out, is that because the evidence was destroyed by freezing and thawing of the soil? Or was there not enough fuel? Did they do something else? I wonder if different types of fuel would produce different amounts of evidence. I know in Iceland for a long time, the Icelanders used dung as the fuel for their fires. Because Iceland doesn't have a lot of trees.
Because of their because geographically they're way up high.
Yeah, it's too cold for a lot of trees, and I think a lot of them were cut down by early settlers.
So interesting is the temperature when you compare the temperature of fire then to the fire now, totally different temperatures, wouldn't they?
Yeah, so a typical fire, I'll just double check this. It depends on the fuel you use, of course.
Yeah.
The temperature of a typical wood fire. Loading. Okay, so apparently, yeah, fire damaged houses burn at about 620 degrees Celsius. But this source also says that fire can be as cold as 200 degrees Celsius and get up into nearly 5,000 degrees Celsius.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so it's really a matter of the type of fuel, the conditions. I think a campfire, like 600 degrees is hot for a campfire, I think. But they clearly reached that because they can tell from the bones that their bones were cooked at that temperature.
Yeah. So in conclusion, this fires back then were hotter than what we get now. Yay.
Well, it's also whether they need to be so hot. Like, a cooking fire doesn't need to get as hot as a fire for smelting iron. So, good luck doing your blacksmithing in a cooking fire.
Oh, no, mind you, they did. Back then, like forging weapons was just basically, I grab a stick and just carve out a spear, carve a spear out of it, or carve a couple of short daggers, and I'm good.
Yeah, this was the Paleolithic period, so they weren't smelting metal yet.
Yeah, although I would love to see that and see that happen though, and see how they do it, and maybe make a movie out of it. Like, but not as crazy as those Hollywood. Yes, I know.
Terrible segue.
Yes, it's a very, very terrible segue. Yes, so if you know, Netflix CEO has said that the movie theater system is a quote outdated concept and believes the streamer is saving Hollywood. So Netflix CEO Ted Sarandos recently described the movie theater system as a quote outdated concept, arguing that most audiences now prefer to watch films at home rather than in cinemas. This is coming after speaking at a 2025 Time 11 summit. Sarandos emphasized that Netflix's consumer-focused approach delivering content in the way viewers prefer is revitalizing, not destroying Hollywood.
Of course he would say that. His salary depends on it.
Yeah, oh yeah. He
Well, not even his salary. He's a CEO.
Yeah.
His stock price depends on it.
I mean, given the slew of movies that have been out lately, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Netflix isn't doing that well. They haven't been doing that well. Although it's interesting with Netflix, some of their shows, it's like one season and then they get cancelled very quickly.
Yeah, I'll never forgive them for cancelling Inside Job.
Really? Was it that good?
Yes, it was. Or Santa Clarita Diet.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. But yeah, Sarandos pointed out to declining global box office revenues as evidence that consumer habits have shifted, and that the industry's insistence on maintaining a theatrical release window is out of step with consumer experience, and that the communal in-theater movie experience is now an outmoded idea for most people, for everybody. Well, for most people, not for everybody. He acknowledged that while some cities like Manhattan may enjoy easy access to theaters, the majority of the country does not have that convenience. Sarandos also stated that Netflix is, quote, saving Hollywood by adapting new consumer preferences, delivering movies and shows directly to viewers' homes. He clarified, however, that he is not opposed to the theaters themselves. Netflix owns and operates a few historic cinemas, but sees their role as limited in the current landscape. So what do you think of that point of view?
I think, yeah, it's obvious he's trying to talk up Netflix because his job depends on it. But Netflix isn't really saving anything. The movie industry, like theater industry, is going under anyway. I don't think there's anything that can be done to save it at this point. So you could argue that having streaming available is going to save, in massive air quotes, the movie industry, because people are going to still be able to watch movies even when the theaters close. But they're going to be different. It's going to be a different thing, because you're going to make movies that people can watch while they're scrolling through TikTok, or movies that they can pause and go to the toilet or whatever. Stuff that you wouldn't make in theaters, because people in theaters have certain expectations of the movies they go to see, and people at home have different expectations.
Yeah. Although it's kind of funny with this article coming out as soon as when the Minecraft movie came out a couple of days ago, and how people were very cross in theaters for their when people started destroying theaters for when Jet Black decides to sing Chicken Jockey.
He doesn't sing Chicken Jockey. You're confusing two different scenes. There's a lava chicken and Chicken Jockey.
Yeah. But you get my point, right? With the whole Minecraft mayhem.
Yeah, I think maybe theaters will lean into that and start to become a more interactive experience. Because if I want to watch a movie at home and not play on my phone, I can do that. Or I can go and spend way too much money to go to the movies. And maybe spending that much money to go to the movies, I will expect something special. And that might be interactive experiences.
I mean, Netflix is also having does have the whole interactive experiences as well. Like, I know this is a series per se, but it kind of classed as a movie. The Black Carbon. No, not Black Carbon. The sci-fi series that had a game as well in the Netflix system.
Black Mirror Bandersnatch.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's different.
Wait, how so?
I'm talking about like Rocky Horror Show Interactive. where
Oh,
people were
okay.
singing along or yelling at the characters, compared to sitting and quietly munching on popcorn. Bandersnatch is an actual game. It's a choose your own adventure game, basically.
But the level of interactivity between those, there you can see a shift in a way, can't you?
Yeah, you can. That's the shift I'm talking about. There's going to be a shift from sitting quietly munching popcorn to interactive experiences.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And I think he can. I think he can be. He might be wrong in the next few months, given how we're seeing a next slew of Marvel movies coming out. Although I mean, think about it, Marvel movies have the amount of revenue they bring in. It's insane. So they could potentially save Hollywood in a sense. I could be dead wrong.
Yeah, I don't think we'll know until we see it.
Fair enough. Anyways, before we head to go to our sponsors and to our shout outs and wacky movie, we've got an update on a previous story we spoke about a week ago in relation with Ubisoft and their complaint, and that was they released a statement to the complaint last week about the game ownership, if I recall.
No, the complaint was about sending data to Ubisoft and not being
Yeah.
able to play offline in a single player game.
Okay. Yeah. So Ubisoft released a statement in response to that complaint. They said, as shared with Eurogamer, the company is investigating the points raised by saying, the quote, "We are aware of the complaint and are looking into it." The spokesman said, Ubisoft is committed to protecting players' personal data on our websites and games. For games that support offline modes in the connection, is required only at the initial launch to validate the purchase and link the game to the player's account, and the players retain control over their personal data through our dedicated privacy. We are continuously working to ensure transparency and empower our community with clear, accessible privacy.
Yeah, no. If you're giving the data to Datadog and Google and whoever else it was,
Yeah.
you can't guarantee that they're deleting it.
So you're taking a glass half full approach, aren't you?
No, I'm not taking a glass half full approach at all. I'm taking a glasses full of bullshit approach.
Jesus. All right. Yep, fair enough. Fair enough. Anyways, so I'd like to remind our viewers this episode is sponsored by Rez, the gaming energy drink that will give you energy for the long game. Crafted from traditional herbs and quality extracts, it relieves fatigue and eye strain, supports eye health, supports mental endurance and stamina to give you hit points in real life. So check it out and don't leave home without it. So on to our shoutouts. On the 29th of April 2025, it's the 25th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask on the 4. You've played this game, haven't you, Professor?
No. You ask me that every time, and often I haven't, because there are so many games, and I wasn't a Nintendo kid.
Yeah.
My first console was a second-hand PlayStation my uncle gave me.
Yeah, so Majora's Mask is a 2000 action-adventure game developed and published by Nintendo for the Nintendo 64. It's the second Legend of Zelda game to use 3D graphics, following Ocarina of Time. It was designed by a creative team led by Eiji Aonuma, Yoshiaki Koizumi, and Shigeru Miyamoto. This game, Majora's Mask, was completed in less than 2 years. It features enhanced graphics and several gameplay changes, but reuses elements and character models for Ocarina of Time. This game introduces gameplay concepts revolving around perpetually repeating 3-day cycle and the various masks that transforms Link forms. As the player progresses, Link learns to play numerous melodies on his ocarina, which allows him to control the flow of time, open hidden passages, or manipulate the environment. This game retrospectively analyzes, recognizes the mature themes and complex time loop gameplay. Yati Croshaw, of the executive of The Escapist, opined that its progress resetting mechanics defied prevailing game design trends that prioritized player empowerment, and a game of its type was unlikely repeated due to its due to the conservatism of big-budget game development. On the 29th of April 25, it's 25th anniversary of Metal Gear Solid on the Game Boy Color. Metal Gear Solid, released in Japan as Metal Gear Ghost Babel, is a 2000 action-adventure stealth video game developed and published by Konami for the Game Boy Color. The game began development after Konami Computer Entertainment Japan were commissioned by Konami's European branch to develop a portable adaptation of the 1998 PlayStation game of the same title. However, the Game Color version is not a port of the original PlayStation version, nor does it adapt the same story, but it instead takes place in an alternate continuity set 7 years after the events of the original Metal Gear. Toei insisted on the development. Nintendo Power listed it as the 11th best Game Boy/Game Boy Color video game, praising it for successfully bringing over elements from the three-dimensional games. On the 29th of April 2025, it's the 95th anniversary of All Quiet on the Western Front. This is a 1930 pre-code epic anti-war film based on the 1929 novel of the same name by German novelist Heinrich Maria Remarque. Directed by Louis Milston, it stars Louis Ayres, Louise Walheim, John Ray, Slim Somerville, and William Bakewell. The film opened to the wide acclaim in the United States, considered a realistic and harrowing account of warfare in World War I. It made the American film its first 100 years, 100 movies list in 1997. A decade later, after the same organization polled over 1,500 workers in the creative community, All Quiet on the Western Front was ranked the 7th best American epic film. Have you seen the newest version of this movie?
I didn't know there was one.
Yeah, it came out, I think, a couple of years ago, actually. And I think it's close to the source material. And
Okay.
and there's a sequel to this as well, to the film, called The Road Back, which portrayed troops from Second Company returning home after the end of World War One. The film was shot with 2 cameras side by side, with one negative edited as a sound film and the other edited as international sound version in non-English speaking areas. A great number of German army veterans were living in Los Angeles at the time of filming, and many were recruited to work on the film as bit players and technical advisors. Around 2,000 extras were utilized during the production. Among them was future director Fred Zinnemann. With the loss of limbs and gory deaths shown rather explicitly, this is undoubtedly the most violent American film of its time. This is because the production code was not strictly enforced until 1934, and also because Universal Pictures deemed the subject matter important enough to allow the violence to be seen. The iconic final shot was filmed during the editing process. All the actors had left, so this is actually Louis Milstone's hand that is seen in the final shot. And what's our messed up moments in nerddom this time, Professor?
I've gone for another historical one.
Oh boy, here we go. I'm ready. My mind
It's
is ready.
the abuse of psychiatry in the Soviet Union.
You've been heavy on the Soviet Union, haven't you, for the last couple of times?
Have I?
There was the one about Camera 41, I think it was called.
I don't recall that one, but okay.
Okay.
I mean, the Soviet Union had a lot of issues, but you can't deny their national anthem's a banger.
Yeah. The prison lab from the Secret Services, Laboratory 1, Laboratory 12, and Camera. There we go.
Okay, I might have spoken about that. I should really be taking notes so I don't repeat topics.
So what is it this time?
Well, during the 50s and 60s, under the leadership of General Secretary Leonid Brezhnev, psychiatry was used to take care of political opponents. They came up with terms like philosophical intoxication and sluggish schizophrenia, then diagnosed anyone who said the Soviet Union was bad, those diseases, and locked them up. And I felt like this one was topical because not too long ago there was an American politician talking about making Trump derangement syndrome a mental illness.
I remember that. That was hilarious. And then, if I recall, that politician got outed as as a really big creep or something like that. I don't want to get into it, but oh
Yeah,
shit.
well, it's not so funny when you know the history.
Oh Jesus. So what entailed in the Soviet Union experiments if
Well, they took things like being outspoken against the authorities, protesting, writing critical books, things like that, and made them both criminal acts and symptoms of a mental illness.
and ethics boards must have been really okay with this, hey?
I don't think there were any ethics boards in the Soviet Union.
In Soviet Russia, in Soviet Russia, the ethics boards would never exist.
Yes, so the KGB, basically a government branch dedicated to tracking down dissidents, would arrange for dissidents to be sent to psychiatrists to be diagnosed with these mental conditions, rather than taking them through a criminal trial.
That's so messed up, man.
Yeah, it's a bit scary that it might be coming back.
Oh dear. Anyways, let's
And
let's
if
move
you've
on.
read One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, you know that mental hospitals in the 50s and 60s weren't the best place to be.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. With Nurse Ratched and all.
Yeah, that was an American hospital, obviously,
Yeah.
but the Soviet hospitals probably weren't any better.
Wasn't the author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? Wasn't he part of an experiment once upon a time as well?
There's some tenuous link to MK Ultra.
Yeah. Yeah. How he took the acid tests and ingested LSD as well.
Yeah, Ken Kesey was a big fan of LSD.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Wow, okay. Anyways, on to our wacky movie. On the 1st of May 1981, Outland premiered in Canada. On this day, this enjoyed its first theatrical presentation ever. This was written and directed by Peter Hyams. The sci-fi drama starred Sean Connery, Peter Boyle, Francis Sternhagen, and this is the plot summary. Marshall O'Neill's assigned to a mining colony on Io, for one of the Jupiter's moons. He soon encounters miners who are dying due to the use of illegal amphetamine. O'Neill follows the trail, and now O'Neill must watch his back as he's now their target. Can you imagine Sean Connery in a mining movie?
I can imagine Sean Connery in a lot of places.
Yeah. So Hyams recalled, I wanted to do a Western. Everybody said you can't do Westerns. Westerns are dead. Nobody will do a Western. I remember thinking it was weird that this genre has endured for so long was just gone. But then I woke up and came to the conclusion, obviously after other people, that it was actually alive and well, but in outer space. I wanted to make a film about the frontier, not the wonder of it, nor the glamour of it. I wanted to do something about Dodge City and how hard life was. I wrote it, and by some great fortune, Sean Connery wanted to do it. And how many chances do you want to work with Sean Connery?
Well, you don't want to be his wife.
Oh, no. I know
There's a
you're gonna
video interview where Sean Connery's like, yes, I think it's okay to beat your wife if she's being a bit naughty.
I remember that story. Oh, no, don't remind me of that, damn it. Oh, shit. This movie was filmed at Pinewood Studios, Ivor Heath, Buckinghamshire, UK, with an initial budget of $12 million. Outland was pioneering as the first motion picture to use IntroVision, a variation of front projection that allows foreground, midground, and background elements to be combined in the camera, as opposed to using optical processes such as blue screen matting. This enabled characters to convincingly walk around miniature sets of the mining colony. This movie was also one of the few movies to be released theatrically with the Mega Sound sound system. Mega Sound was a movie theater sound system created by Warner Brothers in the early 1980s. It was used to enhance the premiere engagement of a handful of Warner Brothers movies. Theaters equipped for Mega Sound had additional mounted on the left left, right, and rear walls of the auditorium. Selected soundtrack events with lots of low-frequency content, as thuds, crashes, explosions, etc., were directed to speakers at very high volumes, creating a visceral effect intended to thrill the audience.
That's pretty cool.
This film centered around fictional synthetic amphetamine drug polydichloric ethylamyl. I'm gonna get so destroyed by the chemistry people after listening
Oh,
to this.
yes.
In 1991 film Terminator 2 Judgment Day, the words polydichloric ethylamyl are seen on small yellow barrels on explosives. Although this movie is often touted as a remake of High Noon, starring Gary Cooper set in outer space, numerous elements greatly influenced Moon. Both plots contain similar elements of a mining company using questionable methods driven on by profits at the expense of their employees. The digital countdown clock is nearly identical in size, shape, and readout. Also, both are counting down the arrival of assassins sponsored by a shady corporation who intend to use murder to cover up acts of corporate greed. Kind of like modern companies nowadays, eh?
Quite there yet, but we're getting there.
Anyways, that's all we have for this week. Check out Prez and their lovely energy sachets. Stay happy, stay nerdy. See you guys.
Look after yourself, stay hydrated, and we'll see you next week.